Welcome back to the Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra. All right, so now we're going to dive into what I'm sure is going to be a very fun conversation with my guest, Jenny Paul. So welcome, Jenny, to the Gyrl podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. Why don't you start out by telling the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So, starting at the beginning, no, I'm kidding. So basically I came to New York to be an actor and then eventually picked up producing as part of my acting and part of my just, keeping sane, keeping the bills paid kind of job. And so basically I've been acting and producing for about acting for 15 years, producing for about like 8 or 9. And these days, because content creation is, such a big deal, I'm having, a lot more ease and fun times kind of coming up with my own things and bringing on teams that I really want to work with and developing, shows and short films and sometimes social media content. Actually, not sometimes, all the time, because if you're in social, you're always on social. But basically sort of morphed sort of my, career just before COVID and during COVID into sort of content creation. And so yeah, that's mostly what I do. I say to people in New York that I have big parts in little things and little parts in big things. So I've done a couple of major TV shows, which were really fun. I did Jessica Jones. I did the show Looming Tower on Hulu with Jeff Daniels. And then, I've done a ton of things that, nobody's ever heard of or a few people really love, but, and I'm able to keep a career and my bills paid. And so, that's what makes me happy.
That's awesome. Well, it's definitely awesome to be able to work in your purpose and something that you're passionate about. And just even like seeing you talk about it, just then, like your face was just lit up and you were like, and it's almost like you're doing something, you get to do something that you love every day.
Yeah. And I think it's really great. And I never expected acting would be on the table. I grew up in Texas and did theater in school, but people do that for fun. And then you get a real life. And then sort of somewhere along the line, I realized, no, I could do that. And I really felt a connection to, not all the work is great. Never, some of it's just complete garbage, but some of it really does that ultimate thing of connecting people with other people and making people feel like they're not alone in the world. And that's sort of what I kind of live for. So any version of that. And then if you have comedy involved, I'm like extra in.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, you do have your own show. One of your shows is Adulting with Jane. So you're making yourself laugh. All right. So let's talk about that show and, how it sort of intersects with your life and your career, and where do you see it going in the future?
So Adulting with Jane was sort of a project that I had been sitting on for a long time because I produced another show about 5 or 6 years ago called That Reminds Me. And it took, it was amazing and the experience was great. And I really, did not regret one little bit running that show. But I realized at some point that if I was going to put that much energy and time into creating another one, that it had to have something kind of new and interesting and sort of important for me to have the motivation to stick with it for as long as this type of show takes to really come to fruition. So this particular show, I had sort of been wanting to do because, it's sort of that thing of adulting is something everybody struggles with and kind of making fun of it, but also sort of bringing in an educational component so that people could watch a show, have a good laugh, and then leave thinking, oh, I, probably could do that thing that they did in the show and, not explode. So that's sort of where that came from. And then, we added this element of it's actually interactive. So you can shop within the show. You can literally click around and, hit things and then they open up on your screen and you can shop those tools that we use for adulting. Maybe eventually we'll be selling Jane's t-shirts and whatever. But right now it's really about that tool that you learn. If you learn how to change a tire, then the tire jack is something that if you want to just go ahead and buy it, throw it in your trunk and never think about it again. And then when you need to, next time you can be like, oh, let me go look up how to change a tire again. then you're prepared for that moment and you don't have to really think about it. So the idea was that it's sort of this all-in-one comedy, education meets, buy the thing you need and throw it in your closet and be done with it.
That's it's very cool.
Yeah, the idea of just sort of empowering people to do these things that everybody's a little bit petrified of just because we've never done it before.
Exactly. Anything, it's like no matter like how old you get, there's something in adulting that you're like, oh man, like definitely don't want to do that. And you speak, the tire changing, like it's just like, nope. Because I remember like when I was younger and I got a flat tire, like I was driving back, it was like right after the holidays, I was driving back to Atlanta from like my mom's house, and my tire like went out. And so I wasn't too far away. So I called my brother, who at the time, my younger brother, who at the time had not changed the tire himself. So it was the two of us out there trying to figure out how to change the tire, but almost doing something really stupid, like getting rid of like the tire that had the rim on it. Like we put the donut on, and I was like, at first we were like, because this was like really like my first time where I got like a flat tire. And so I was like, oh yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you just take it back with you. And for some reason, like something in our heads was like, no, let me put it in the car. And then I remember getting back and just being like, yeah, that was going to be stupid because I was going to have to buy like a whole nother rim because I didn't realize that. So just things like that, that you don't think about in everyday life. Like you said, if you have not had to do it.
Right. It's like, and then that one time is so much, panic. What am I doing? Am I going to do it wrong? Am I going to drive away and kill myself? There's all this thought, all this sort of anxiety build up around what you're going to do wrong. And the truth is that it's like anything else. If you practice it a time or two, or if you get
exactly
sort of teach you how to kind of do it, you're good.
Exactly. That makes me laugh. So where can we watch it? Where can we find it?
The main show right now is on adultingwithjane.com, and that's where it's sort of set up to be interactive, but you can also catch a couple of the episodes on Amazon. So if people are just, want to watch it on the TV and, not play around with sort of the interactive elements, Amazon is great. And, if you want to play around with the interactive piece, it's online.
Awesome. All right. So you are a busy woman. So let's talk about this. One of the things we talk a lot about here on the podcast is just having that balance in your life, because a lot of people that listen, a lot of people that, are in the audience, a lot of people I interview are entrepreneurs that sometimes still have day jobs, right? You have a day job, you've got the side business, and then you've got the personal life. So what do you do? How do you maintain all those things in your life?
Well, I would say that I wasn't particularly great at it for most of my 20s. And then I realized that a lot of the running around that I was doing, I'm one of those people that was always keeping busy for the sake of keeping busy. And I realized a lot of that running around was sort of compensating for just my fear of having nothing. And I think, it took me a long time to sort of understand the sort of element that it wasn't just me, like, trying to be enthusiastic or trying to run around and please people, or trying to, make more money or whatever, that it was all sort of a thinly layered veil for like, I was really afraid to have nothing to do and just kind of be with myself. So I think I spent the earlier part of my 30s, I'm 36 now, earlier part of my 30s, just sort of like forcibly taking a step back and saying, okay, these are the things I really want to do. And these are the things that I'm doing just to do. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spend, and it took some time just because there's a financial element and there's, family and my husband, but figuring out these are the things I really want. And these are the things I can live without. And, of course, somewhere in the really want is also the need. So I have to, you have to make the money, but taking those things and prioritizing them based on need or want, and then dumping the rest so that when I am doing something that I want to be doing, that I can fully be invested in it and enjoy it and not think to myself, gee, I should be, taking better care of myself or spending more time with my husband or sleeping. Things, things that I didn't do very well then. And now, and I think COVID just sort of even exacerbate is not really the right word, but it made it even more important because now going places, you really have to think it through and make sure that you're, that it's worth going out and, taking that little bit of risk and whatever, everybody's got a different opinion, but I think that trying to find that work-life balance didn't come from until my 30s. And then when I started to do it, realizing that was the only thing that was going to allow me to have joy in all of the things that I was trying to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's great. And I love that you talked about, just the idea of like being busy just to be busy. And I think that is a hard conversation to have with yourself sometimes especially when you're a person that, you may be, you may have a job and you may be trying to pursue a business. And I think even inside of like your own business, sometimes you have to like weigh the options of like, now what do I really need to be doing? Because I could just be doing a lot of things to say that I'm doing a lot of activity. But is this activity having any impact? And, like I sort of went through that this year myself. Like I launched something inside of Glow Up Gyrl that I was super excited about. Like, it was like, oh my God, it's the baby. I've been waiting to do this. And it just didn't really work. And so, but in it, I was spending hours like creating the content to put up and tell the story and all that. And I was like, you know what? And I just got to a month where I was super tired from like my day job because I was really busy there. And I was like, you know what? And then here I am like on the weekends, like just repeatedly being busy trying to do this. Like, am I doing this because it's working, or am I doing this because I want to say that it's there? And when people go to it, and finally I just told myself, you know what? I'm just not going to do it this month. I'm not going to do it. And then I'm going to see what happens. Guess what? Nobody emailed me and said, oh my God, Kyra, I just missed those tools that you put up. Nobody said they missed it. Nobody, spoke of it. So I said, you know what? Then you don't get any tools anymore. You're not going to get them until I figure out the best way for me to bring them to you without it like literally almost killing me every month. Without, me having to miss out on like the week doing, relaxing on the weekend when I want to be catching up on like my shows or binge watching. I'm like in the, on the computer, like, working.
Yeah. And I think that, that also finding those like boundaries where, okay, today I'm going to get up and I'm going to get my butt out of bed and I'm going to, do my, exercise and, feed myself. And then from 10 to 3, I am, with the, 1/2 hour break, I'm going to do the thing. Yeah. And then committing to doing the thing, get the thing done. And then at 3, like you're done. Or I know that's not an 8-hour day. So 5, 6, whatever it is for you. I'm a more of like a late person. So my hours are all over the place, but I actually, sometimes do better when I do 2 hours and then I take a 2-hour break and then I take another 2 hours and I end up working the 8-hour day, but it's more constructive and it doesn't feel like it's going to burn me out.
Exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. It's definitely, and I agree with you. I'm 100%. It took me a while to get to that point of saying, I'm going to do this time to this time. And then I'm going to walk away because I usually on Saturdays, like, because I have a job, on Saturdays was it's the day I work on Glow Up Gyrl. So it's like, I would get up. I mean, I still get up early just because like that. I hit the ground. Like I happen to be like a morning and a night person. So I can get a lot done in the morning. I can get a lot done late at night. And so I would get up about 7 o'clock. And then I'm like, working on my computer. And I had to tell myself like, it's okay. Okay. You can do this from this time, do your podcast recordings in between, but you need to be done at like 4 o'clock. So like when my husband says, hey, I'm closing the shop, I'm coming home, then I need to be like, when he pulls in, I need to be leaving this office so that I can go and give that time to him. But before I would be like, okay, I'm coming. And he'd be like, I mean, like what? And then I would catch myself taking the laptop out of the office into the family room and then setting it up. And I'd still be in there like, I can, of course I hear you. I can multitask, duh. But and finally, but I stopped doing that. That's I said
You
all
know,
that to say, but I stopped, and now I honor those boundaries that I set too, just like you.
yeah, and it's so hard too because you kind of when you're in it, you want to be in it. You know, you
Yeah,
finally got around to being in it, and so you're like, okay, this is happening. But at a point, one eternity later for your husband, he's like gonna kill you, and then you don't have your time. You don't have the time for him, and you don't have that time for you later
exactly.
when he goes to bed or when you guys are when you're and so it just sort of has this ripple effect. So the boundaries are huge.
Oh
And
yeah.
did not figure that out until probably too late, but at least, I got it now.
You know it now, girl. You know it now. And
Exactly.
so you said you are a night person too. Now, is your husband a night person too?
Nope. Not
See,
at
and
all.
it's like the opposite of my house. Like my husband's a night person too. So we're both like always up, like really late at night. We're up late at night. And it's like I finally like I get up at like 5:45 in the morning. And like it allows me like quiet time, meditation, reading, praying, workout time. And then I come down and start like take puppy out for a while. And then I start working at around like between 7:30. But then it's like he doesn't get up until 10 o'clock. So he gets up at 10 o'clock and then he goes to his shop at like 11. And I mean, it's pretty much like like whatever he decides. If it's a good day for him, I mean, he might be back home in like 3 hours. And I'm like, I mean, and I'm like, I'm sitting on the desk, I'm like, oh, and he goes, well, I mean, I don't want to come because I know you like to have your time. I'm like, I'm literally here working, like I'm on calls all day, like I'm doing my job. And so then when I get done, like with my job at like, I mean, just anywhere between like 6:30, sometimes 7. And then sometimes, I'm like, okay, well, I need to do a couple of things for little girl. Let me do that. And then he might be doing stuff. He might be working on stuff, but like we will be up. Like there's no like him going to bed first. Like I generally like we both are like up. And so I go up around like between 10:30 and 11. So I can like watch stuff. Like we watch stuff together, but then it gives him time to like watch the news, gives me time. Like I love to watch like Adult Swim. So I go upstairs and I watch a lot of cartoons and catch up on like just stuff that he doesn't enjoy watching and look at all that stuff. And then it's probably like 12 between 12:30 and 1 o'clock before we ever like go to sleep for real.
So when do you sleep?
Between 12:30 between 12:30 and 6 o'clock.
Oh my God. I would die. I would die.
Because then it's so funny because like my body now has just gotten so used to it because it's like I can't function if I have more sleep. I try to like force myself sometimes on the weekend to sleep later than like 7. Like I can probably sleep till 8 o'clock at the latest. And I'll be like, go to sleep, girl. Just go back to sleep. But my brain is already like, oh, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. And then you need to, girl, you got these things. Come on, you get up, get up, get up. And I'm just like, oh, man. But I take a lot. Like, you know what? Sometimes I sneak like 15-minute naps. If I get like a 15-minute nap, like at night, sometimes it'll be like 9 o'clock. I might go to sleep for 15 minutes and it just like gives me new life.
I love that. I at some point in my life, like the sleep became a non-negotiable. And, I don't know how many people are like that or, not, but at some point it was like, if I don't get that 8 or whatever it is, it is not happening. And I'll get up and I'll do the coffee and I'll get there, but it's not, my body's like, no, we're not doing that.
It's like, no, thanks. But I appreciate that. I mean, I appreciate knowing, what's important to people and what they need, because this is funny. I promise I'm going off on a tangent, but I saw this and thought this was hilarious. Like I was at one point looking for like a new hairstylist, and the girl like said in her ad, she was like, I am not a morning person. Like I will do this in the morning if this is the only time that works for you, but I don't want to be talking. She's like, I'm not that friendly in the morning, but if you book me in the afternoon, like it's all good. So all good. And I
was all there in the, oh my God.
It was so funny because I was like, wow, okay, I can appreciate her honesty, but I cannot book her because I am the other way. I want the earliest appointment you can give me in the morning, even if that means like you got to be knocking at my door at 5:00 in the morning. I'm cool with that because I want to get it over with so I can have the rest of the day do what I want to do. So I was like, we will not be a good match.
That's hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So on all that talk about, how we're balancing, how you're, drawing boundaries, are there still things out there that you wish you had the time and the energy to be doing?
I mean, yeah, I guess. So I've always kind of struggled, and, again, don't know if it's in a vacuum or if it's everybody experiences this, but I've always had a lot of mental energy and not as much physical energy to match the mental energy that I have. And that's been like that from day one. So I think in another life or in another situation, there are a lot more physical things that I would have liked to explore, like sort of, being, getting really fit, which I may do at some point, after I, have kids and do all that and whatever. And just, kind of doing the things that are a little more physical, like going on, hikes and things and getting in shape. And, I'm in decent shape, but like, I'm not in shape to like do like a big, monster anything.
I can't run, girl. Like I can't run anywhere. I can walk, but I cannot like run. But I'm with you there. I desire to be able, I'm so envious of people when I see people like jogging and they're jogging like for miles. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, it's just never been me. I'm sort of the tortoise and not the hare in that scenario. I'm like, that's just it. So like, one day maybe I'll have a little bandwidth or a little time to start exploring, like if my body can actually handle these things a little better than I think it can, and just kind of get there. So that's on my list. I mean, I did a half marathon in my 20s for the sake of it, and it was rough, but it happened. And so the funny story was a Disney marathon because my brother was living in LA and I live in New York. So I went to visit, and it was Avengers and we're running, and he's better than me. Not, he's not in particularly great shape either, but he's better than me. So we're jogging for a while and I'm doing well. And then I stop, being able to keep up. And so what starts to happen is I start to fall back and I'm having a chat with somebody to just keep me from like wanting to die and, walking fast, running. And then we start to see these Mickey balloons sort of in the distance. It's like the Mickey ears. And then they have like a balloon wrapper on it. So, and there were a million of them. And I turned to the person next to me and I said, what's with the Mickey balloons? And they were like, oh, so if you fall back behind the Mickey balloons, they kick you off the race.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, what? Like, I'm not at Disney World to not finish. Even if I'm like hobbling, I'm going to finish.
Exactly.
And she said that they put something called at pace, which is a running term, where somebody who's a really good runner runs at exactly 16 minutes a mile. And as people fall back, they throw them on a bus and they send them back to Disney World where we started. And so I was like, no, we're not doing this. So now the rest, like the second half of this marathon is like the Mickey balloons, and they're like coming and I'm running and they're coming.
Trying to outpace the Mickey balloons.
And I was like, I finished, and my brother, he was kind of consistent the whole time. So I don't think he was going to fall behind, but like what I would do is when I fell too far back, I would run to my brother and then I would fall back again because I didn't have the stamina to keep running. So I'd fall back and then I'd run to my brother and like nick of time. Like we made it, but now I like nightmares forever.
Oh my God. The anxiety that must have come with like, oh my God, don't let the Mickey balloons catch you.
Right. And I had so many friends like that I was making on the road to talk to that like fell back, and it was like the Hunger Games. I was like, no. And then, at the end, I felt so bad because like I wasn't about to fall off. Like that was not happening.
Yeah, you were like, that's not going to happen.
We're not doing this.
Yeah, you were like, I'm definitely going to finish this race. Okay.
Yeah, like
Oh, that's a classic story. I like it.
oh my God. So yeah, but that's kind of me and the fitness thing. It's like I've
Hmm.
always been like functional and like, I get
Yeah.
by, but like that's probably like a good metaphor for my fitness life.
Yeah.
Like always, it's always kind of creeping there. Like, you could have this autoimmune thing, maybe like your mom does, like, if you don't keep control of this, or you can start putting on weight because that's your inclination.
Yeah.
There's always like a health thing kind of lingering in the back. And like,
Yeah, I try. Look, I know, I right there with you. I know it all too well, and it's so funny because I mean, this is probably the most consistent that I've been with working out since we've been in a pandemic. Because it's like, oh, I wake up, I can work out, and then I work out. I do like Peloton workouts or whatever. Now I'm working to rebalance my eating habits because that also with the pandemic became, oh, I can eat this during the day. I don't have to wait anymore. Okay. But all that, it's a slow thing. You'll get there, right? It's like there's this moment where it really truly turns on. And you could also blame like where you live. That's what I always tell my husband. I'm like, well, duh, like if we had lived like on the West Coast, and we do all those things like running and hiking and stuff like outside and all that. I said, but we live in the South. And I mean, people don't do a lot of that.
nope. I grew up in Dallas. Nobody does nothing. It's
Yeah, I'm
not.
like, they're not like just outside, like hiking and, being all fit and healthy and stuff. So I blame it on my circumstance. He's like, wow, like that just sounds like an excuse. I was like, but it is one that I'm willing to stand by.
I like it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So being in the entertainment industry, I know you've heard you've heard a lot of yeses, but you've probably heard a lot of no's. And you may have also said no to some things. Can you talk about a time when, saying no or being told no led to even something better for you?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, I audition for probably once a week at least. It's a little slower because of COVID and everything, but for one of the network shows or, one of the shows that's coming up. And I, there's just not enough hours in the day. And like my agent put me in for, this is recent. She put me in for the Sex and the City reboot.
Mm-hmm.
And I auditioned and they called. But what had happened is, there's a, I don't know if I would have booked it or not. So just, so you had a sense of how it works. But basically what happens is they audition and they give you a range of dates that they're thinking of shooting this. It's they call them outside dates. So it's, between July this and, August this. Mm-hmm. And if you're free for most of that time or all of that time, then you can submit. If you're not free, they don't want you to do that because it's a waste of time. Mm-hmm. So I submitted for a pretty wide, set of dates, but I told my agent there was one weekend slot that I was going to be in Texas for my dad's 70th birthday. And so I auditioned for it and they called. And usually what'll happen is what they'll do is they'll call and check availability on like 2 or 3 people. Mm-hmm. And one of those 2 or 3 people is the first choice. And then one is the second. And if they have to go to the third, they will. So they don't offer a role usually until they've called to check that availability. And so my agent got the call for that. And it was like right on top of my dad's birthday. And I was, I would love to do this series, like, Sex and the City, who's gonna, gonna that, but like my dad only turned 70 once.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I, and my agent and I both agreed it just was a bad luck situation. And the answer was going to be no. And I think, 10 years ago, that would have devastated me. I would have been like, no, I need this role. I don't. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big part of it is that you spend all this time trying to get them to say yes to you. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it's just not, doesn't work out. So I think it, again, that's a 30s over 20s thing for me, like at that point, but yeah, I've said no to plenty of things for that type of reason. Like, I don't want to miss my sister's wedding. I don't want to miss my dad's 70th birthday. And, I think there are a lot of artists that would say yes anyway, just because that's sort of how the business works. And I sort of decided pretty early on that acting was going to be a priority, but not necessarily the priority.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And that's a little bit how I fell into producing, because with producing, I kind of get to pick, You know, if I'm the creator and I'm the one scheduling all of the things, like, you know, something's going to happen at some point, but I get to pick when we do it. So I don't,
Right.
you know, it's a little bit of a blessing in that way.
Yes. Awesome.
So,
Love that. So let me ask you one last question. What advice would you give to anyone out there who, maybe, an actor, maybe a producer thinking about producing? What advice would you give them? A lot of times people are like, I want to do this. And then I've written stuff, I've got stories, I've got things written, but I just don't know what to do next. And then they sort of sometimes, like you mentioned earlier, you said, I'm from Dallas. I didn't think it was on the table. What advice do you give to someone who may be thinking something similar?
I mean, for producing, just because that one's the easy one, treat producing like a startup. So nobody thinks that producing and content creation is business. And they're really the same. I have an LLC company that, is legally, that's legally founded, that I have payroll, I have, HR, I have, taxes to pay at the end of the year. I need an accountant. You have to treat your projects, and even if they're individual projects, like it's a business, because there's money coming in, there's money going out. Usually there's more money going out than coming in for independent people, but you got to at least, treat it as such. And then make sure that all of your ducks are in a row, so that if you sell your concept or something like that you're able to do that, because, the networks that are always sort of fishing for new stuff. So that's on the producing side. On the acting side, I think my extraordinarily personal story is I didn't think that I could be an actor, partially just because where I grew up, people didn't take it seriously. I also thought in my head that it was a stupid decision. Like I had prejudged it as stupid. I thought, the odds of me getting to be one of these crazy famous people with lots of money is too high. This doesn't make any sense. And then in my head also, I never wanted to be famous. That was not a thing that I cared about. That's not a thing that I care about. What I care about is the work and the art and sort of the ins and outs of, and how it makes me feel, how I'm able to make other people feel. And then the other was, I was very honed in on my body image and what I look like. And I was chunky and like, still am, like that just, there were certain things that just didn't seem like they were going to work out for me, especially where I came from and, the value sets of the people around me and that sort of thing. Not that anybody had anything wrong with them, but
right.
the South has a pretty high premium on like perfection in certain like visual ways. And like, I just never was that person. So, what I realized is like, I never gave it a shot. I went to college for pre-med. The only reason I did acting at all was because pre-med was stressful and I needed to just blow off steam. And I already knew that I really liked theater. So I was using it as an outlet. And when I went to theater, to school in the Northeast, people took it seriously because people in the Northeast know that theater is an actual choice. And it is in the Northeast, and it may not exactly be in Texas, but maybe one day there'll be a bigger scene. I don't know. So I think that's really what it came down to. And I would say to anybody, like, if you think that that's your thing, give it a shot. Go to school, go to school somewhere where they care about it, or go, take a couple of years and figure out if you like doing it, or go do your community theaters or whatever. And if you think it's your thing, give it a shot, because 2 years from now, especially if you're young, you could just be like, not for me. My husband did that. He went to music school. He wanted, thought he was going to be an opera singer, and then he just didn't want to do it. And he loved it and he still loves it, but that's not what he wanted. And he doesn't regret it. And he's, it's not a failure. It just wasn't for him.
Yeah.
So, and I think, that's the thing is don't be afraid of the failure piece of it. See if it's for you. If it's really for you, you'll find a way to make it work. And if it's not for you, then walk away and you'll have a great hobby.
Yeah. Well, and the part that we consider failure is really the learning. It's like the most important part, because it's how you figure out, like, is this right for me? It's the learning. So yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. All right. So now we're going to move into our final segment. It is 5 Things with Jenny. So I get to ask you 5 questions that help the audience get to know you even better. So my first question is, how do you start the day?
Um, I usually start the day by getting up. More often than not, I actually do the elliptical machine, which is sitting right next to me, first, because through the day I lose the energy to do it. So, and also for whatever reason, if I do it after breakfast, my stomach doesn't like me very much. So I try to do that first. And then I'll go eat breakfast. I will shower and put makeup on some days, not all the days. And then do the day. So either if I'm sitting at home doing producing or something else, then I'll just start right away, because my best working hours tend to be like early in the day, and then I'll take a nice break in the middle, and then I'll have a little bit more juice at the end. But even though I can work forever later in the day, I'm not as clear thinking and I'm not as decisive. So I'll try to just knock out the stuff that like I don't really want to do right away. And the stuff that's annoying to me, because then it's done, and then I can just, do the stuff I like later. And then and then some point make myself some sort of like salad or something for lunch. And then the afternoon kind of goes the same way. I, now that COVID's not as big of a thing, I try to get out at least once a day, just because, I spent so much time not doing that. And then on days, and then my husband comes home and we do dinner together pretty much every night. We watch some TV together. He goes to bed. And if I'm still kicking, I'll probably like watch a couple episodes of something I know he doesn't want to watch to unwind, and then go to bed.
I love it. You answered two questions in one. I'm just gonna tell you. I gotta how to start and how do you end. So you look at you, girl, knock it out too.
I just did it all in one.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, on a production day, it's a totally different thing, and it's pretty much just insanity from top to bottom. So there's,
because you're like out, you're like moving, doing, yeah. So tell me, what is a show that you enjoy been watching with your husband, and what's something you watch once he goes to bed?
Oh, okay, so one of our favorites right now is Succession. I think it's coming back really soon, so we're super excited about that. I don't know, it's just good. It's just amazing. I don't have anything better than that. We love Ted Lasso. Anything by Mike Schur, Parks and Rec, Office, loves The Good Place. Anything with that sort of wholesome comedy he's into with me. The stuff that he doesn't like as much is really the stuff that's kind of darker, which he likes dark as long as it's really well written and has its funny moments to breathe. But if it's a dark show that does not have any humor at all, and even if it's really good, it's not his thing. He'll do it. So I just watched Squid Game. Oh my God.
I'm going to watch that.
I watched it all by myself because I knew Jeremy might not be into it. And then I kind of said, I leaned over to him one day when we were falling asleep, and I was like, you probably should watch this one. Because it's just so good. Yeah, so I tend to like the more like bingey drama things while he's not awake, because he just gets bored when it's not at least somewhat funny or something like that.
All right. Okay, I like that. Let's see. What do you do? What do you like to do when you're not working? So you got a day, say you got a Saturday free. What are you doing?
Wish I had a better answer for this. Usually it's TV, not because not because I'm so into TV, but just because that's what my husband really loves. And so we end up there. I actually tend to schedule like multiple walks a week with friends, and that's sort of my outlet.
Oh, okay.
He's a little more introverted. I'm a little more extroverted. And because of COVID and because of just the nature of everything, like I don't get to interact with a million people a day like I used to.
Yeah.
So I at least try to like have one friend interaction a day for a couple hours just to feel like a person. And that's my joy. And it always is. This always has been, is people. Just
awesome.
That's always been.
Yeah. Okay, I like it. And my last question, they're in a bonus one here. What's one thing you're looking forward to or you're preparing for for 2022?
Well, I am hoping to figure out a way to make Adulting with Jane self-sustainable. So right now it's sort of half sponsored, half sort of crowdfunded, and we're, because people, we have a lot of social following and people that are into it, but we haven't really kind of nailed down how the inflow of money would happen in a post-COVID scenario. So we did the whole business plan for pre-COVID, and it was working. And then, now what's happening is these mid-sized businesses don't have extra marketing money and things like that. So we're hoping to do that. And if I'm lucky, I'm hoping that I might have a family in this next couple of years. That's really, the non-career version of it. Jeremy and I, we're trying. So hopefully, knock on wood, that'll happen. And then maybe I'll have more stories to tell, because that in and of itself is a whole, whole.
Exactly. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Well, I would say thank you so much for spending time with me. This has been such a pleasant conversation and fun. And I hope you'll come back in the future to tell us more about what you have going on. So please know that you can always drop in and talk to me.
Thank you so much for having me. This was lovely.
Fantastic. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.